Good evening. Welcome in daily UPSC editorial audio program. Governance don't fit Times of India. Kabul conundrum. The Times of India. No vote for veto. The Hindu. Now the full editorial. Governments governors don't fit the Times of India. Constitutional amendment needed to strengthen uh, Rajyapals. The Supreme Court has yet again laid down the limits of a governor's power in a writ petition filed by Punjab against the state's governor. It is important because it sets the precedent for similar dispute between state governments and governors in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. The common thread running through these disputes is that governors delay assent to some bills passed by legislature for an uh, inordinate duration. Consequently, it undermines both legislative intent and the policy agenda of the incumbent government. The apex court uh, reiterated, reiterated that the governor is a state's symbolic head and the real power is with the legislature. This has been stated in judgments for almost 50 years. Yet, if problem recur, it is because the issue is political rather than legal. Successive central governments have used the office of the governor to undermine state administered by opposition parties. Now it is often done using a loophole in the Constitution's Article 200, which says that if a governor withhold assent to a bill, it has to be returned to the legislature as soon as possible for reconsideration. In the absence of a finite limit on the duration before it is sent back to the legislature for reconsideration, governors have delayed bills in some cases for a few years. The verdict emphasizes the Constitution expects governors to act quickly and not sit on bills. Governors don't have veto power over elected representatives, but the problem is unlikely to disappear because it is political in nature. Therefore, the entire political class needs to consider a constitutional amendment that fixes a deadline on how long governors can sit on a bill. Kabul conundrum. Afghan embassy shut. Government of India get creative to preserve interests. The closure of the Afghanistan embassy in India highlights New Delhi's strategic dilemma. The embassy ceased its operations, citing lack of support from Government of India, something Indian official has had previously denied. But it was clear that the position of the embassy, which operated under the previous Afghan Republican government, on which now a Taliban regime wants to take over, was untenable. The problem of New Delhi is like most of the world it doesn't recognize the Taliban regime but yet need to work with Kabul to safeguard its strategic interest. That requires some diplomatic creativeness. There is a significant number of Afghan citizens still in India. Families have been divided since the fall of Kabul in 2021, with India cancelling all existing visas issued to Afghan nationals. But according a semblance of diplomatic recognition to Taliban is also tricky. Aside from the group appealing treatment of Afghan women and girls, there is no predicting their equation of Pakistan. Currently, Kabul and Islamabad are at odds over the latter's deportation of Afghan refugees, but this could easily change with a shift in the internal dynamics of Taliban. And if Pakistan is able to restore its strategic depth in Afghan via Taliban, India would need suitable options, including contacts with elements of the previous Afghan regime. For the moment, New Delhi can establish limited technical cooperation with Kabul. It should also revive issuing of visas of Afghan national. India has always stood by the Afghan people. That goodwill is its biggest strategic asset. No vote for veto. The Hindu Supreme Court has done well to remove the veto power of governors. In a parliamentary democracy, governors do not have a unilateral veto power. Bills passed by the legislature. This is the crux of the Supreme Court's ruling in a case arising from Punjab after Governor Banwarilal Purohit withheld assent to some bills passed by the State Assembly on the pretext that those were adopted in an illegal session of the House. The court's reading of the scheme of Article 200, which deals with grant of assent to bills, is in line with the core tenets of parliamentary democracy that an elected regime responsible to the legislature runs the state's affair. While granting controversy, there is a proviso to the article which states that as soon as possible the governor may return the bill if it is not a money bill to the House of reconsideration. But when the bill is passed again without changes, he cannot withhold assent. The Supreme Court has now read the power to withhold assent and the proviso in conjunction, holding that whenever the governor withhold assent, he has to send the bill back to the legislature for reconsideration. This effectively means that the government either grants assent to the first instance or will be compelled to do so after the bill's second passage. The court has done well to point out that governors, in a system that requires them to function mainly on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, cannot withhold action on bills and must act as soon as possible. This is a clear reprimand administered to governors who believe they can and endlessly delay actions on cabinet or legislative proposals because of the absence of a prescribed time frame. Mr. Purohit states that the particular section of the assembly was illegal because an adjourned house was reconvened by the speaker on his own has been rejected. The court has ruled that the earlier session had only been adjourned and not pro- pro- prorogued. The verdict should not give any further scope for controversy over the role played by governors in the lawmaking process that culminates with their granting assent to bills and must end the tussle between elected regime and the center's appointees. There is still some residual scope for controversy if as a result of governors being divested of the power to reject bills unilaterally, they start referring bills they disapprove of to the president. Such an eventually should not be allowed to arise. Thank you.